No public statement. No press conference. No dramatic confrontation in front of flashing cameras. Just a quiet instruction passed through palace corridors, and a name permanently removed from every future royal guest list. When Prince William made the decision to block his former trusted advisor from ever attending another royal function, it wasn't just a professional dismissal. It was a message, and it signaled something far deeper brewing inside the monarchy. It began with a revision so subtle most would have missed it. An internal document updated. A digital guest registry altered. A line quietly struck through without explanation. Inside Kensington Palace, however, nothing escapes notice for long. Staff members who handled invitations noticed the change first. The advisor's name, once automatically included in high-level engagements, was gone. Not postponed. Not pending review. Gone. The instruction carried no dramatic language, no emotional outburst attached to it, just finality. And in a system built on hierarchy and precision, finality is rarely accidental. Whispers started cautiously. Was it temporary? A cooling-off period? A strategic distancing? But when confirmations came from senior aides that the ban applied to all future royal functions, state dinners, charity galas, private receptions, even informal gatherings, the atmosphere shifted from confusion to quiet alarm. Ever again echoed through private conversations with unsettling weight. In royal terms, suspension is common. Reassignment is survivable. But permanent exclusion is exile. And exile inside the monarchy carries symbolic force. What made the decision more striking was its delivery. There was no visible anger from William, no emotional leak to the press, no subtle smear campaign. Instead, there was composure, calculated restraint. The future king did not explain himself publicly because he did not need to. His authority, once cautious and collaborative, had begun to sharpen in recent years. Those close to him had already sensed it, a new firmness in meetings, a clearer boundary between loyalty and overreach. This was not the hesitant prince navigating inherited expectations. This was a leader consolidating control. Yet beneath the administrative precision lay something unmistakably personal. The advisor in question had not been peripheral. He had stood near the center of William's strategic world. He had been present during difficult transitions, private recalibrations, sensitive family storms. For that proximity to be severed so absolutely suggested more than disagreement. It hinted at rupture. Something had crossed an invisible line. Something had shifted from misjudgment to mistrust. Inside palace walls, tension lingered like static in the air. Staff members avoided direct questions. Some feared that loyalty audits might quietly follow. Others wondered what precedent had just been set. If someone that close could be erased so cleanly, what did it mean for everyone else? William's silence was louder than any press release could have been. And while the public remained unaware of the internal tremor, those within the institution felt the ground subtly moving. Because this was not merely about attendance at events, it was about power, about control, about a future monarch signaling that access to him and to the monarchy itself was conditional, fragile, earned daily. The quietness of the act made it more chilling. It suggested deliberation rather than impulse, strategy rather than reaction. And as questions multiplied behind closed doors, one truth became impossible to ignore: this was not about protocol. It was about betrayal. But to understand why a future king would make such a final, unforgiving move, we have to go back to the man who once stood at his side closer than almost anyone realized. He wasn't just a staff member. He wasn't just a strategist. For years, this advisor operated in the shadows of royalty, influencing speeches, shaping responses, and guiding decisions that would define William's public evolution. He had access. He had trust. He had proximity. And in royal circles, proximity is power. So what happens when someone that trusted suddenly becomes the one person the future king can no longer tolerate? His rise had been swift, but not accidental. At a time when William was recalibrating his role, stepping out from the long shadow of legacy and into something sharper, more modern, this advisor positioned himself as indispensable. He understood tone. He understood timing. Most importantly, he understood William's quiet frustration with outdated systems and relentless scrutiny. What began as professional collaboration slowly deepened into strategic intimacy. The advisor wasn't just drafting speeches, he was helping shape a voice, not just coordinating schedules, but influencing direction. Private meetings stretched late into evenings. Confidential memos passed between them without passing through the usual channels. Together, they crafted responses to controversies, fine-tuned charitable initiatives, and mapped out a long-term vision for a monarchy that needed renewal without rupture. In moments of turbulence, family tensions, media storms, institutional pressure, the advisor became a stabilizing presence. He knew when to urge caution. He knew when to push forward. And William, navigating expectation and ambition, leaned on that steadiness more than most realized. During crises, the advisor's influence grew even stronger. When headlines turned hostile, it was his counsel that shaped the tone of defiance or restraint. When public perception wavered, it was his strategy that recalibrated the narrative. He helped craft the image of a composed, forward-looking heir. And as that image strengthened, so did the advisor's confidence. Perhaps too much. Because proximity has a way of blurring boundaries. The more access he was granted, the more comfortable he became speaking not just as an advisor, but almost as an equal voice in the room. Suggestions evolved into directives. Guidance edged closer to control. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual. A comment that lingered too long. A decision made without full consultation. A tone that shifted from supportive to assertive. At first, William tolerated it. Loyalty breeds patience. But patience has limits. Subtle tension began to thread through their interactions. Conversations that once flowed easily now carried an undercurrent of friction. William, increasingly aware of his own authority, started pulling back in small but noticeable ways. Fewer spontaneous consultations. More structured briefings. The advisor sensed the shift and pushed harder, convinced that his insight justified his influence. And that was the dangerous line, the moment when guidance begins to resemble overreach. Inside royal power structures, hierarchy is sacred. Influence must never eclipse position. The advisor, perhaps blinded by years of closeness, underestimated that truth. He had helped build the future king's public strength. But he forgot one essential rule: no one stands beside a monarch indefinitely without consequences. And somewhere along that fragile line between loyalty and ambition, something shifted, something that would fracture the relationship beyond repair. It wasn't one argument. It wasn't one mistake. It was a discovery, quiet at first, then devastating. A conversation overheard. A document forwarded. A loyalty tested. Whatever the exact trigger, insiders described the moment Prince William realized something had gone wrong as icy and immediate. The trust wasn't dented. It shattered. And when trust collapses inside a monarchy built on secrecy, the fallout is never contained. At first, it arrived as a whisper, a detail that didn't align. A private strategy discussed in confidence, somehow surfacing in a place it never should have reached. William had built his inner circle carefully, brick by brick, convinced that discretion was the foundation of stability. So when that foundation trembled, he felt it instantly. This was not rumor. This was not media distortion. This was internal. Something said in trust had traveled beyond its boundaries. The precise trigger may never be publicly confirmed, but those close to the situation describe a chilling shift in atmosphere, a forwarded communication, a conversation that should have remained sealed, a subtle but undeniable breach. And in royal life, access is sacred currency. The advisor had possessed extraordinary access not just to schedules or policy discussions, but to personal vulnerabilities, private family tensions, long-term succession planning. To misuse that proximity, even once, was not a minor offense. It was sacrilege. Behind palace walls, the confrontation was not loud. It was controlled, measured. William did not erupt. He interrogated calmly. He listened. And that calmness, those who understand him say, is far more dangerous than anger. Because when William grows quiet, he is calculating, weighing, deciding. The advisor, perhaps realizing the gravity too late, attempted explanation. Miscommunication, misinterpretation, an accident. But the future king had already drawn a conclusion. The line had been crossed. For William, this was not merely about professional boundaries. It cut deeper. He had entrusted this man with sensitive family dynamics tensions that stretched across generations, conversations shaped by decades of public pressure. To risk exposing even fragments of that world felt like betrayal not just of him, but of the institution he is destined to lead. The monarchy survives on controlled narrative and internal cohesion. A breach threatens both. Yet even in that moment of fracture, William wrestled internally. Loyalty does not dissolve overnight. Years of collaboration cannot be erased in a single conversation. There was a part of him that weighed forgiveness, a part that remembered late-night strategy sessions and shared victories. But leadership carries a harsher calculus. To excuse betrayal would signal weakness. To ignore it would invite repetition. And as the weight of that decision settled, William understood something profound. This was no longer personal disappointment. It was institutional risk. The psychological burden of that realization was immense. A prince can tolerate many things. A future king cannot tolerate disloyalty within his immediate orbit. In that split second between trust and rupture, William's posture shifted. Not outwardly, the composure remained intact, but internally, the door had begun to close. What shocked palace insiders most wasn't the falling out, it was what William chose to do next. Royal fallouts usually fade quietly. Contracts end. Staff move on. Faces disappear from photographs. But this was different. This was permanent. Prince William didn't simply distance himself. He blocked his former advisor from ever attending royal functions again. Not weddings, not jubilees, not state banquets. The message was unmistakable, and the severity stunned even senior courtiers. Inside royal operations, attendance is never casual. Every event, from glittering state receptions to private commemorations, is curated through a layered approval system. Names are vetted. Clearances are confirmed. Access is granted by proximity to power. For someone who once stood at the center of strategy meetings, to suddenly find that access revoked across the board was more than professional discipline. It was a declaration, a boundary etched in stone. The language used in internal communication was brief, cold, clinical. The advisor was no longer to be included in any future invitations. No exceptions, no seasonal reconsideration, no discreet appearances. The permanence of it carried symbolic force. In a world where reconciliation is often disguised as diplomacy, this was something rarer: finality. And finality inside a monarchy is not issued lightly. Palace staff felt the shift immediately. Some were unsettled, others were quietly impressed. There were those who wondered whether such a decisive move risked internal unrest. After all, loyalty among aides often rests on the belief that mistakes can be managed. But this decision suggested something sharper. It implied that certain lines once crossed erase second chances. Conversations grew more cautious. Emails became more measured. The atmosphere tightened. For William, this was more than punishment. It was positioning. For years, critics had speculated whether he possessed the resolve required to lead an institution steeped in tradition and crisis. This move answered that question without a single public word. It signaled that he was no longer simply preparing for kingship, he was practicing it. Authority was no longer theoretical. It was active, assertive, controlled. Yet beneath the strength of that stance lay emotional gravity. To issue a lifelong ban against someone who once shared strategic vision is not a simple administrative task. It is an act of severance. It demands clarity, discipline, and an acceptance that certain relationships cannot be salvaged without compromising the whole. William understood the weight of that decision. He also understood the cost of hesitation. In leadership, ambiguity breeds instability, and instability in royal terms invites danger. The ripple effect was immediate. Other aides recalibrated their positions. Proximity to the future king no longer felt like guaranteed protection. It felt conditional, earned daily. Trust, once assumed secure, became something fragile and monitored. William had drawn a line not just for one advisor but for everyone watching. And while the public saw nothing but silence behind palace gates, anxiety was spreading because everyone began asking the same question. Bans of this magnitude are rarely about ego. They are about protection. Protection of image, protection of legacy, protection of something far more fragile than reputation. So what exactly was Prince William safeguarding? Was it Catherine? The children? The monarchy's future stability? Or was it something even more personal, a truth that could never be allowed to surface? To understand the scale of his decision, you have to understand the strategy quietly shaping his future reign. For years, William has been crafting a version of the monarchy that feels leaner, more disciplined, more modern. Fewer voices, fewer leaks, fewer unpredictable variables. He knows the world is watching differently now. Every gesture is dissected, every silence interpreted. Modernization for him has never meant exposure. It has meant control, tightening the circle, choosing trust carefully, and protecting what matters before it becomes vulnerable. At the center of that protection stands his family. Catherine. The children. Their privacy is not a luxury, it is armor. William has watched what relentless intrusion can do. He has lived it. So when someone within his own orbit appears to mishandle sensitive knowledge, the threat is not abstract. It is immediate. Conversations about schooling, about health, about internal disagreements over royal direction, none of it was meant to drift beyond private walls. If even fragments were mishandled, the risk multiplies. Not today, perhaps, but eventually. And that is where the balance becomes delicate. A modern monarchy must appear transparent enough to maintain public trust, yet guarded enough to survive. Too much openness invites chaos. Too much secrecy invites suspicion. William walks that line constantly. The advisor, once instrumental in navigating that balance, may have disrupted it. Whether intentionally or carelessly, something tipped. Something suggested that information entrusted in confidence had traveled further than it should have. There were whispers of private disputes over strategic direction, disagreements about how boldly to reshape the institution, how firmly to confront controversial figures, how aggressively to redefine royal roles. The advisor knew those discussions intimately. He knew the fractures and the ambitions. If that knowledge escaped containment, even subtly, it could weaken William's carefully built narrative of unity and strength. So the ban begins to look less like punishment and more like insulation. A firewall erected before sparks could spread. Decisive leadership is not only about reacting to betrayal, it is about preventing escalation. William calculated the cost of mercy. He measured the risk of allowing continued proximity. And he chose containment over reconciliation. That choice speaks volumes. It suggests he believed the stakes were higher than public perception, higher than hurt feelings. But leadership decisions of this magnitude rarely silence tension completely. They redirect it. They compress it. They create new uncertainties. Because when someone who once stood so close is suddenly pushed so far away, the question is not only what was protected, it is what that person now carries with them. And as speculation intensified, one uncomfortable reality began to surface: the advisor might not be staying silent. A former insider is dangerous not because of what they say publicly, but because of what they know privately. And when someone who once helped craft your narrative suddenly stands outside your gates, the risk shifts. Would he retaliate? Leak? Write? Speak? Or was the silence itself the loudest warning of all? In royal politics, silence can be strategy, or it can be a countdown. History has never been kind to royal households that underestimate the power of a wounded insider. From memoirs that cracked polished reputations to quiet briefings that ignited media firestorms, the pattern is familiar. When proximity turns to resentment, secrets become currency. And this advisor had once stood at the very center of confidential strategy. He understood tone, vulnerability, ambition. He knew where internal disagreements had flared, and where compromise had barely held. That knowledge alone made him unpredictable. Inside palace communication teams, tension tightened like a wire pulled too far. No one spoke openly of fear, but contingency plans quietly resurfaced. What if a book deal emerged? What if anonymous sources close to the situation began circulating carefully framed narratives? Crisis protocols were reviewed without being named. Legal teams refreshed non-disclosure clauses. Media monitoring intensified. The machine prepared for turbulence even if none had yet appeared. And yet, The most unsettling factor was the advisor's silence. No angry interview. No public grievance. No retaliatory leak. Just absence. In some ways, that was worse. Silence leaves space for imagination. It leaves room for calculation. Was he negotiating behind the scenes? Waiting for leverage, or simply absorbing the blow, choosing dignity over escalation? No one inside the palace could answer that question with certainty. Through it all, William remained outwardly composed. He did not react to speculation. He did not attempt to preempt rumors. That calm was deliberate. Every seasoned leader understands that visible anxiety fuels narratives. By refusing to engage publicly, William shifted the burden of noise away from himself. It was a calculated stillness, one that suggested confidence or at least the projection of it. But projection does not eliminate risk. The psychological duel had begun long before either man acknowledged it. On one side stood a future king guarding legacy and family. On the other stood a former confidant carrying intimate knowledge of how that legacy was being shaped. Neither spoke, neither moved publicly. But tension thrived in the space between them. Each decision, each silence, became part of an unspoken contest over control of the story. Meanwhile, media speculation flickered cautiously at the edges. Commentators noticed the absence at key events. Observers questioned the abrupt shift in proximity. But without confirmation, speculation remained just that, fragments without fire. Still, those within the institution knew better. The threat was not necessarily imminent. It was potential. And potential in royal politics can be more destabilizing than action. Yet as anxiety pulsed quietly behind palace walls, something else began to take shape. Because this wasn't merely about avoiding exposure or containing fallout, it was about redefining power itself. But amid the anxiety and whispers, one truth became increasingly clear: this decision wasn't just about the past. This was not the reaction of a wounded prince. This was the move of a future king. In blocking his former advisor from ever attending royal functions again, Prince William signaled something monumental. The era of quiet tolerance was over. The next generation of monarchy would operate on loyalty, discipline, and unshakable trust. No exceptions. For years, William had been studied, analyzed, even underestimated. Some believed he would soften conflicts, smooth over fractures, maintain harmony at any cost. But this decision told a different story. It revealed a leadership philosophy rooted not in comfort, but in clarity. He was no longer navigating legacy. He was defining it. And in doing so, he made one thing unmistakable: proximity to the throne would no longer guarantee protection. This marked a generational shift. In earlier eras, royal conflicts with staff were often handled discreetly, diluted by reassignment or quiet exits. Reconciliation was preferred to rupture. Appearances mattered more than absolutes. But William's approach carried sharper edges. It reflected a world that no longer tolerates ambiguity. In a time when institutions are constantly scrutinized, hesitation can look like weakness. So he chose decisiveness instead. That decisiveness required emotional restraint. There was no public condemnation, no attempt to humiliate or discredit. He did not leak damaging narratives or stage symbolic gestures. Instead, he drew a boundary and stood by it. That restraint was not indifference. It was maturity under pressure. It showed a man who understood that leadership is not about winning arguments. It is about protecting structure. Inside his team, the message resonated clearly. Trust would be rebuilt, but only on terms that reinforced hierarchy and responsibility. Staff began to recalibrate their roles, aware that loyalty was not ceremonial. It was operational, earned daily through discretion and discipline. The environment grew more focused, less casual, more aligned. In removing one influential voice, William strengthened the collective understanding of accountability. The symbolism of finality cannot be overstated. A permanent ban is not just administrative, it is declarative. It states that certain actions carry irreversible consequences. It tells those watching, both inside and outside palace walls, that future leadership will not hesitate when lines are crossed. And in that symbolism lies the early shaping of a reign. Before the crown rests on his head, William is already outlining its tone. Yet strength often conceals complexity. Even as this boundary fortified his authority, it left emotional echoes behind. Leadership decisions, no matter how necessary, leave footprints. Relationships once valued do not vanish without memory. And as firmly as the message was delivered, the silence that followed carried weight. Yet as firm as the boundary was, the human cost of that decision lingered in the shadows. Behind royal titles are human relationships, shared laughter, long strategy nights, private victories. When a relationship implodes at that level, it leaves scars even when the decision is necessary. What did this cost William emotionally? Did doubt creep in during quiet moments? Or was the betrayal so absolute that there was no space left for regret? Power often looks cold from the outside. Controlled, surgical. But inside the heart of leadership, nothing is that simple. The advisor had not been a passing figure. He had been present during defining transitions, during moments when public strength masked private uncertainty. To sever that connection was not just administrative discipline, it was the dismantling of shared history. And history does not vanish simply because a boundary has been drawn. There is a loneliness that comes with authority, especially at the level William now occupies. Every decision narrows the circle. Every act of firmness creates distance. Cutting off a long-term ally reinforces leadership, yes, but it also reinforces isolation. The higher the role, the fewer the confidants. And when one of those confidants disappears abruptly, the silence that follows can feel heavier than the noise of conflict itself. Those closest to William have long noted his internal intensity. He absorbs pressure quietly. He does not externalize doubt, but that does not mean doubt does not visit him. In the stillness that follows decisive action, leaders often revisit the crossroads privately. Could this have been salvaged? Was the line truly irreparable? Or had necessity demanded something harsher than instinct preferred? These are questions rarely voiced but deeply felt. Through it all, Catherine's presence has reportedly been steady and unwavering. Not vocal in the controversy, not performative in defense, simply solid. Her support does not erase consequence, but it steadies the emotional ground beneath it. Leadership becomes less destabilizing when shared privately with someone who understands both its privilege and its cost. Even so, shared strength does not eliminate the sting of loss. For the advisor, isolation would have arrived differently. Once accustomed to proximity, now confronted with distance. Once included in strategic discussions, now excluded entirely. The emotional reversal must have been jarring. Whether he feels anger, regret, or resignation remains unknown. But removal from royal orbit is not merely professional displacement. It is symbolic exile. And symbolism in the monarchy is permanent. Public royal decisions do not fade. They are archived in memory. A lifelong ban is not easily reversed without undermining its original message. That irreversibility carries weight for everyone involved. There is no quiet reconciliation without consequence. No return without contradiction. Authority demands sacrifices. Some are visible, others linger internally, shaping future caution and resolve. William's choice strengthened his position. It clarified his boundaries, but it also marked a turning point in how he navigates trust. Once fractured, it is never restored in the same way. And in the end, the question that lingers is not whether the ban will hold, but what it ultimately reveals about the monarchy's future. When history looks back on this moment, it may not remember the advisor's name, but it will remember the signal. Prince William did not argue publicly. He did not explain. He acted. And sometimes, in royal history, the most powerful statements are the quietest ones. Because blocking someone from ever attending royal functions again isn't just personal, it's political. The symbolism of that decision reaches far beyond one fractured relationship. It marks a declaration of authority at a time when the monarchy faces relentless modern scrutiny. Every hesitation is dissected, every compromise questioned. By choosing finality over ambiguity, William demonstrated a decisive strength that defines leadership before the crown ever touches his head. He did not defend himself in headlines. He did not engage in spectacle. He drew a boundary and let it stand. That restraint amplified the message. For generations, Royal forgiveness has often been viewed as a virtue: quiet reconciliations, subtle reappearances, carefully managed reintegration. But this moment rewrote that expectation. It suggested that forgiveness, while noble, is not guaranteed. That loyalty is not assumed. That proximity to power comes with unspoken obligations that, once broken, cannot always be restored. This was not cruelty, it was clarity. And clarity, in turbulent times, is rare. The monarchy is adapting whether it chooses to admit it or not. In an era of leaks, memoirs, and constant commentary, control over narrative has become survival. William understands that the future throne will not be sustained by tradition alone. It must project discipline. Stability. Consequence. His leadership brand, quiet, focused, deliberate, is crystallizing through moments like this. Not loud, not reactive, but firm. And what of the advisor? His legacy, once intertwined with the shaping of a modern prince, now carries the shadow of exclusion. His influence fades not through scandal, but through absence. In royal life, absence can be louder than disgrace. It erases presence from history's photographs and replaces it with a question mark. That question mark lingers. Inside palace walls, the unspoken message is unmistakable. Access is conditional. Trust is sacred. Influence has limits. Those who stand near the center must understand that their proximity is a privilege, not a shield. William's decision resonates as both warning and promise: a warning to those who may mistake familiarity for immunity, and a promise to those who value structure over chaos. Yet beneath the strength of this moment lies something even larger. This was not merely about correcting a past breach. It was about shaping the tone of a future reign, a reign that will not tolerate erosion from within. A reign built on defined boundaries rather than inherited assumptions. The act itself may seem quiet to the public, but within the monarchy's intricate architecture, it was seismic. And so the story does not end with a ban. It expands into something broader, a glimpse of the kind of king William intends to become. Calm but resolute, measured yet immovable. Because in royal circles, doors don't just close, they lock, and when they do, the echo can shape a reign before it even begins.